But the bigger news with Mississippi State is that they just announced yesterday that they have hired their new head coach, and it is former Oklahoma offensive coordinator and Ole Miss offensive coordinator, Jeff Lebby. How about that?
It's an interesting hire. I will say this. It's interesting as in most Oklahoma fans are glad Lebby's gone. But outside of the Oklahoma fan base, people are saying it's a good hire. And I'm inclined to actually agree with that for Mississippi State. I think for Mississippi State in particular, it's a good hire. You maintain an offensive presence, and hey, the only thing that this doesn't bode well for is the Egg Bowl is going to be a shootout from now on, an absolute shootout. And Lane Kiffin has said that he feels more comfortable coaching in shootouts and play calling shootouts than he does in low-scoring games like the Thanksgiving Day Egg Bowl was. So maybe that doesn't bode well for you in a matchup perspective, but hey, I think Zach Arnett had to go. I think Jeff Lebby is the best thing that you probably could have brought into your program right now that is at least a well enough known name to where you might be able to convince some of the players on your roster to stay and create some buy-in and maybe bring in some recruits. But ultimately, we understand that Mississippi State is one of these teams that only has so high that they can go up given the league that they play in. So what Mississippi State needs to do is they need to find their next Mark Stoops. I don't know if Levy's going to be that guy. They need to find their equivalent to Mark Stoops, I should say, as Kentucky has. One that can create, a consistent 8, 9, every now and then a 10-win season. But I got to say,
it's going to be very hard to do at Mississippi State in the new landscape, man.
It would be very difficult. But I will say for this hire, I'm gonna give this hire a B-. I think they could have done a little bit better. They could have taken a little more time to cross some X's and dot some O's, but I don't think it's a terrible hire.
I'm going to go, my initial reaction was kind of meh, but the more I've thought about it, I'm actually going to give this a B+. And I think it was a good hire in the sense that if you're at Mississippi State, you have to hire somebody that is a savvy offensive mind that can put up points, that runs something different, like a different offense than what the rest of the SEC is running. Because if you're at Mississippi State and you just basically try to be like a carbon copy of Georgia, but just with Mississippi State's talent level, you're going to get smoked by everybody. So you have to run a style of offense that is like different, that the other teams aren't used to seeing, in order to gain that edge. Because if you're at Mississippi State, you are scratching and clawing to gain any sort of edge, because you know that if you don't have any sort of X's and O's edge over the rest of the league, you are going to get smoked and you're going to be consistently in the bottom of the SEC. So from that perspective, I like the hire, but at the same time, Jeff Lebby's never been a head coach, so it's a huge unknown. So the only reason I'm not giving it an A- or an A is because you just hired a guy that's never been a head coach at the college level, and that could be a huge flop. So,
and for that same reasoning, Shub, that's why I dropped to a B-, just because he hadn't been a head coach. But I do think there's some potential there for them to at least have the offense, like you were mentioning, and at least be consistent in that factor. And if you have an offense, it at least makes you consistent enough to win games or put yourself in a position to win games and at least go bowling every year.
The Egg Bowl is going to be funny now that Mississippi and Mississippi State are just basically carbon copies of one another going at it.
That's going to be fun. That's going to be fun.
I mean, Lebby was Kiffin's OC for 2 years, remember? 20 to 21. So it's Lane Kiffin's former OC going against
I'm telling you, man, like the Egg Bowl next year is going to be a lot of fun to watch.
It is going to be.